So ladies, gentlemen, fellow Kryptonians out there, happy frickin' Superman Day, and we just got a behind-the-scenes look at Superman. So if you couldn't tell already, I am highly adrenalized right now, but I really can't believe what we've got now is what they kind of played at CinemaCon, and my god, guys, I have a lot to say. I really wanted to do a reaction, but I don't want to risk copyright with the score in the background, as that tends to happen. So I went to take notes, bullet points, to go straight into a deep dive breakdown video. So kind of take this, basically, as my reaction, as this is still insanely fresh in my mind as we go through these clips together, which tease a lot of brand new looks at Superman, Lex Luthor, a proper, and I said a proper look at Metamorpho and even the Hammer of Boravia. More on that guy, because there's a bit of a theory going around about him. Is it really Lex? We'll get to that. I do apologize again if this is a bit flustered, but you guys know me. Very, very hyped. Would really appreciate a like on this video, and let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Make sure you're subscribed for any future Superman content coverage just like this. But let's get into this. My god, strap yourselves in, guys. So we first pick up with David Corenswet walking onto set with that gorgeous cape flowing. And we hear Gunn talking about, you know, when being a child, he loved the purity of Superman. And then we cut to those shots of Svalbard, Norway, where, of course, they shot the Fortress of Solitude scenes. And we just hear more about how, you know, James Gunn wasn't sure if Superman was in his future. I think it was Peter Safran who said that, and wasn't even sure if it was the one he should be doing, but then eventually found his way in after trying to crack it for years, which is true, because he was, like, offered Superman ages ago, but he opted to do the Suicide Squad instead, which I don't think many people would do, or maybe they would because of the pressure of Superman, but he found his way in, and slowly but surely the trailer gets more and more interesting as it unfolds from this moment. So then we see Rachel Brosnahan behind the scenes saying that they just finished day one of shooting Superman, and we need to talk about those extra looks at the Superman suit itself. I have to say, I put my hands up just in case, because I know people have different opinions about this, which is fine, but you know, it's almost like you get flamed for liking it, but I still really dig it. I know it's not in everyone's taste, trunks or no trunks, lines or no lines, collar or no collar, and all of that. Different strokes for different folks. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, also great. You can have your opinion. So please be respectful down in the comments below. And also, while I think of that, do not post leaks or anything from leaks out there, because, you know, people want to go in the comment section to just talk about this behind the scenes footage without any potential spoilers out there. But anyway, back to the suit. Seeing it here now, even more with David Corenswet standing upright, walking around in it, just in these behind-the-scenes looks. The suit, you know, as I'm seeing on screen here, it just does look like it nicely fits on him, which is why I, mention standing upright, because, of course, there's the whole commentary about the lines. Not the cursed lines, but as with other looks that I found with people talking about this from the sneak peek preview, there was a lot of people saying, oh, the suit looks better here. And really, it's just because he wasn't in a position to have the suit crease up, because he was kind of laying down, right? But if you go like this, like my hoodie, it forms all of these creases. Now, of course, when he stood up as well, there's still creases in it. And enough of this bloody creases, lines commentary. But, this is all to just say, when he stood up in poses and whatnot like this, I think it looks great. I really do. I know, again, you may prefer little bits and pieces being changed about the suit, but overall, with more and more time and looks at the suit, I've come to, like the trunks even more. I'm actually a person who would have said no to the trunks if you guys have been following me long enough. It's not that I'm against trunks, it's just by preference is no trunks, but now I've seen it more, I'm used to it. So I guess what I want to say now is, I'd love to know if any of this behind-the-scenes footage has made any of you warm up to this suit even more. Let me know. But I also appreciate this shot here of Corenswet shooting the scene as Clark Kent rushing into work in the Daily Planet. I know we've seen this shot before in the teaser trailer, but from this kind of angle and perspective, it is just wild how much Clark absolutely towers over everyone else on that sidewalk. But more on Clark Kent in a little bit. So as David Corenswet says, it's been one hell of a week in the office. We get to see him wearing the somewhat burned Superman suit, as well as his stunt double there, seemingly training for a scene. Now, I can only assume that this is from where they were filming around the time of that kind of, Superman fight with the Kaiju, of which, as a part of Superman Day right now, we're getting tons of new toys and merch that involve the Kaiju, alongside other toys and stuff, which I'll probably get into in another video down the line. But there's also another shot later on in this behind the scenes where Superman's like kind of seemingly, getting hit with this blast, and you can kind of see two different angles of it. There's flamethrowers, and I think this is just them shooting that shot for when the Kaiju is basically breathing fire. But then we get a look at Nicholas Hoult dressed up as Lex Luthor, looking very swanky here, talking about how the script is so unique and the story is so heartfelt. And I have to say, he is looking very, very clean. I mean, I love Holt's Luthor looks that we've got glimpses at so far. And speaking of the toy merch that we were just discussing, there is probably something I'm showing on screen right now, and where he's sporting quite a dark purple suit. So lots of Lex colors here that Gunn is bringing out, and more on that as well a little bit later. But look at them both standing here together. Like, my God, I mean, it's just, I can't really complain personally. I don't know about you, but which is when we get some behind the scenes of the practical set of the fortress, where you can see what is actually CG from that sneak peek and what isn't. And as I said, a lot of it from what I saw in the behind the scenes months and months back, I was lucky enough to get a source sending me something. A lot of the crystals were real, and now you can see it right here. Like, how cool is it to see this many crystals in addition to the actual physical, practical Kryptonian console and, the chair that Superman laid. I mean, this is quite typical, obviously. A bit of a practical set, a bit of a CGI backplate to expand the fortress to make it look like that sneak peek preview where it's much more bigger and grander. But I still find peaks like this to be really, really awesome insights. And even, how could I forget, the fortress robot, a practical fortress robot. I remember discussing this on the live stream with you guys, and we were like, wait, what if the arm of the fortress robot was actually real? Obviously, again, not too uncommon here to do a blend of CG and practical, characters. So I'm sure that's exactly what the purpose of this is. But again, I love this insight into production because it really does come across to me as very top notch. And now jumping to this bit already a little bit later, because it's just so related, we see Mr. Lex Luthor at the Fortress of Solitude, at the very Kryptonian console itself that we saw in the sneak peek. Now, we all knew that Lex gained access to the fortress from the IMAX version of the teaser trailer, where he literally walked in the entrance with the crest on it with Ultraman, who we are calling, to any new viewers here, we just call him Ultraman for simplicity's sake, and the engineer, and that's probably how one of Superman's fortress robots gets wiped out. But now seeing him here at the console, I didn't actually expect that. And I actually didn't have any idea that they would do the mini fortress crystals either. I mean, I tried zooming in at the fortress console and you could see little specks of stuff, but now, like proper up close, you can see that the small fortress Kryptonian crystals have made a return, and that actually makes me very, very happy. I think what I'm more intrigued about is, despite Gunn and Nicholas Hoult going on about how Lex Luthor's so super smart, advanced with his intellect and, technology, that it's borderline wizardry and sorcery, how he's able to interact or interface with Kryptonian tech, because surely he's going to. Like, how's he going to know how to do that? All of that stuff. So I think, bottom line, obviously, Lex, surprise, surprise, is up to no good here. But it's going to be so intriguing to see exactly what it is that he takes away from the fortress that aids his larger plan in the movie. So next up, we get a much better look at the other superheroes, or the metahuman compatriots that Superman has in the film. So starting here with Isabella Merced's Hawkgirl suit, and the way it's lit here, I'm not gonna lie. I know this just sounds convenient. Like, oh, Boba, you love everything now in the behind-the-scenes reveal. But I'm not gonna lie. It does make me dig it a lot more. Now, that's not me saying that I wouldn't prefer a very comic-accurate Hawkgirl suit, one that's more textured and layered with different materials rather than just like a, straight up leather kind of thing. And as Isabella Merced implied in an interview quite a while ago now, that this current suit represents where Hawkgirl is at currently in the timeline of the DCU, which I take to mean, yes, she's wearing this Lord Tech corporate team suit uniform right now, as that's where her character is currently at in the DCU, but that doesn't mean she won't have one later down the line to represent her Hawkgirl character from that of the comics. So a comic-accurate one doesn't mean she's going to get one by the end of this movie. Something that will more represent her getting her own superhero autonomy, much like Superman has with his own suit after all, as I keep going on about in the Reverse Kingdom Come theory, kind of breaking the parameters of the current superhero world and the way superheroes feel like it should work now because they've been around for a long time, so perhaps they're more regulated by corporations, government, some are more autonomous than others. You get my point. But either way, say what you will about it, but I think it does look pretty damn clean. Like, it's really well lit, and the helmet looks good. I think the way the light is hitting the mace is just, I mean, it just looks cool. And I assume that these shots that she's posing for here are all kind of promo shots, like character posters and whatnot. But I have to shut up now about Hawkgirl because, ladies and gentlemen, a Metamorpho. Dude. I can't even begin to explain how good Anthony Carrigan looks here. Oh, God. I mean, you can see how flustered I am in this video. I mean, I know we saw his head before. And, I think, to be honest, a lot of us felt like when we heard Gunn say that Metamorpho would be practical, I was like, okay, sure, probably like Nebula from Guardians of the Galaxy, a lot of makeup, practical, but also CG when powers get involved and stuff. But Metamorpho's body, surely be entwined with CG a bit. And I'm not saying that it won't be, obviously, when powers come into play. But the fact that they managed to create Metamorpho, like a practical chest piece here, with the arms and stuff, with such comic accuracy is just extraordinary. Like, prosthetics these days, man, are so freaking cool. Like this, I'm so glad they went with this look because it's impressive. Often, I think if they were to do a Metamorpho full CGI flowing kind of Metamorpho split to his body, it would come across a bit maybe, not plasticky, Play-Doh-y, whatever you want to say. Sometimes CG can come across like that. But here, without saying and repeating myself too much more, it's just so impressive. I would love to know your thoughts on it. But that is Metamorpho right there, let alone when they do incorporate his powers and we see that on screen. That's going to be so cool. And I hate to move on from that because I could ramble about Metamorpho all day, but we do have to get through other shots in this sizzle behind the scenes reel here. We get Rachel Brosnahan welcoming us into the Daily Planet, and her Lois attire here is just, again, I mean, what can I say? I mean, I don't know, by the way, if that's like a magazine cover there on that computer with Lex Luthor. Now, of course, we've already had glimpses at the Daily Planet in the teaser trailer, but here we get even more looks at the office space, and, even a Daily Planet globe is present there at, I think, the entrance of the building, possibly the reception as you come into it, and that looks really sweet. I love seeing Corenswet here in Clark mode, grabbing his best bud, Jimmy Olsen there. I mean, I'm still curious as to whether Jimmy Olsen at this point knows Clark Kent's identity as Superman, and if his watch there could be like this Superman beacon communicator-like thing that many have theorized about. But all that's left to say is this energy behind the scenes is what I love to see. Now, speaking of the Daily Planet, we then get a scene filming with Lois, Cat Grant, Ron Troop, Jimmy Olsen, and finally a look at Wendell Pierce as Perry White. Now, I hope in the official trailer that we might get sometime in May, we get to see like a bossy line from him. Just like Lane or Kent, get in my office. I don't know. But what can I say? The Daily Planet crew are looking excellent. Then we cut to Gunn, looking at what appears to be a storyboard for shooting. It's quite blurred, though, so don't get too excited. You know, we can't really get any sneaky spoilers out of that. Then we get a little bit of an extended glimpse at that familiar fight between Superman, the Engineer, and who we call for now Ultraman at that stadium in Metropolis. Now, speaking of Hawkgirl earlier, as you can tell, like, we're getting to the clips that are playing faster and faster and faster, so kind of bear with me here. Who the heck is Hawkgirl rushing through this glass window here? Like, damn, like, she kind of bursts through it with them, I assume, and she, like, probably flies them up into, like, the skyline to intimidate them, kind of like Batman style, right? Like, hanging them over the edge of the building. Now, this isn't exactly a way that Superman would do things or approve of as a hero, which could cause some of him and his metahuman compatriots like Hawkgirl and Guy Gardner to butt heads on how to handle superhero business or how it should be conducted. Like, Gunn has also teased that, talked about that. I mean, for all we know, this dude here deserves to have the crap scared out of him, but for now, I have no idea who this is. For a second, I thought, wait, is that Maxwell Lord? Will, like, Sean Gunn have, like, super long hair? But, you know, if they're working for Lord Tech, would she really do that to Maxwell? I don't know. I don't know who this is. Maybe it's Simon Stagg from Stagg Industries, because we know that's involved. Or it's just some randomer, like, that they're going after. Either way, I think this speaks more to the way other heroes are dealing with things, and Superman maybe rubs off on them to maybe play things a bit nice. I don't know. Let me know any theories. But next up, we get a shot of Lex and some of his Lex Troopers at what could be, I guess you could say, well, anywhere, but perhaps it's related to this metahuman detention facility that he's got, as we saw in a teaser trailer. Perhaps this kind of rumored pocket dimension of his. Now, I'm not sure, but Lex Troopers and Luthor himself aside, what the heck is this Slenderman-esque freaking creature all about? Like, I mean, what? For a brief second, when I first saw it, I was like, wait, is this like a kind of person in a green screen suit in order for them to kind of do stuff and maneuver in? But nope, this thing has got a creepy smile, long Slenderman-esque fingers, and if anything, it kind of looks like a bloody White Martian. And to be honest, who knows what the heck Luthor has got locked up in his metahuman prison, as we do know, just to emphasize and repeat what I've said before, from the first teaser trailer, that we did spot other people in those other square cells behind him, not just Superman. So does he have, like, aliens there as well, like a White Martian? That is a shot in the dark there, but any theories, let me know. But I will follow up theories like this in a discussion series video, which will be all about the fallout from this whole sizzle reel teaser trailer thing that we've just got. So don't worry, there's gonna be lots more content on the channel coming out of this video. Now, speaking of Lex Troopers, we do get a shot of Lex's whole team here, if you will, with Gunn, like a bunch of Lex Troopers, but also the Engineer and Ultraman. And, you know, I think overall with this shot, it just gives us a fantastic look at all the detail of these suits, and I think they all look really decent. I love seeing how much of Luthor's green stands out in these suits, but more on Luthor and his colors on a certain other suit in just a moment. But then we see James Gunn on the inside of some ship or shuttle, and I do think it's safe to say that this is the inside of Mr. Terrific's T-Sphere ship, and it also does match the color scheme of his costume with the white and, you know, the red Terrific and whatnot. And this will likely be used to whiz around in the movie. And as we saw from some of our first set photos that gave us our first looks at Lois Lane and the Daily Planet crew, and don't worry, this is no spoilers, it's just they were coming out of some kind of shuttle, and that's how we first saw them on set with all that rubble, if you guys remember. And it's probably, that was a portion on set of this larger ship. But then we get this quick scene of Lois looking very concerned as Superman is looking out the window at that Solaris-esque floating jellyfish that we know Guy Gardner is fighting outside. Now, Superman looks back as though he's seemingly pretty beat, I guess, as he's readying himself to go out there and face it, which might explain why he was sat there having a coffee while, you know, that fighting was going on outside. Maybe he's still recovering from something else in the movie. And then we see a scene of Superman just absolutely stomping towards who I would say is Lex Luthor in his office. Just given how we do get a look at Luthor looking out over Metropolis in the Luthor Court building a few moments after this, so the windows match. And again, to emphasize, Superman has a proper march on, and he looks pretty pissed. Now, with some of the interviews that came out of CinemaCon, Gunn did say, and he let slip, that Superman throws Luthor's desk across the room, across his office. And, you know, you've probably guessed it, as we covered before, he would have to be pretty pissed to do that, so you match it up with this, and this could very well be that scene where Superman, after something, goes in there to confront Luthor. Doesn't exactly hurt him, because Superman wouldn't do that, but he almost loses his cool, or does rather, to the point of throwing his bloody desk across the room. I can imagine this is going to be a very dramatic scene. And then as we approach the end with the next scenes unfolding, we hear Gunn and Brosnahan talk about how Superman is good and filled with hope. We get some more fantastic shots of David Corenswet in the Superman suit, lifting this rubble. And I remember that very shot, or that very scene being filmed, and now we're seeing it like this. I mean, it just looks so good. And I look, again, we don't have to agree on everything, but I just don't see how some people look at that and say that's not Superman. I mean, like, come on, man. Like, how? And then as even more unfolds, there's a lot to cover here. We get a peek at Rick Flag Sr. in live action for the first time, with Frank Grillo talking about how Superman was his original superhero. But not too much more on Rick Flag other than what we just saw there, but it is cool to see him in live action. I know we saw him in the set photos, but there he is. But then, later, probably one of the biggest parts of this video, we then get a look at what is unmistakably, or is so being portrayed for now, from what we know, as the Hammer of Baravia, which, to those of you who don't know, it links back to the newspaper that we saw Clark and Jimmy Olsen holding in the Daily Planet office, and the one that Clark is, holding on the way to the office. So seeing the Hammer of Baravia in this level of detail now, I have to say, I completely agree with the idea/theory that it's likely Lex Luthor inside it. And this could very well be, in turn, his Warsuit. And they probably call him the Hammer of Baravia because Lex likely wanted to cause tensions in response to Superman's involvement in flying over there and helping those people out. And that's just all a, big part of his plan to defame him. Not to mention the absolute presence and hunk of this suit. It wouldn't remotely surprise me if this is what gave Superman his ruptured lungs, his bladder, his 14 fractures, and all of that, which was detailed by the Fortress robots in that sneak preview. Lex himself could have given Superman a proper and unexpected beating, perhaps even with kryptonite, I don't know. We also see this Warsuit coming out of this chamber, and this chamber we've seen in the recent behind-the-scenes photo, which featured both Gunn, Superman, or Corenswet, and Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, and of course we also saw it in the background of that scene with Mr. Terrific. So I absolutely do think that this is technology created by Lex, possibly even his own way of getting around. But man, if we are right about this being Lex's Warsuit, I really dig it. Mostly because it's massive, it's intimidating, it doesn't look cheap, it looks like bloody hell, that is a heavy presence of, something I need to get the hell out of here, away from. And it actually, reminds me, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was inspired by the Superman for All Seasons design. As Lex had his Guardians of the City, they were basically his Lex Troopers, but he called them the Guardians of the City in that comic book. And it's like Gunn based, again, if this is his Warsuit, the Hammer of Baravia, as he's posing to be initially on that design that you're probably seeing on screen right now. So would love any and all theories there. Again, I am going to be following this up in future videos, but that's what I'm thinking as of right now. And it's really awesome to just hear the cast then talk about how this is the beginning of a whole new adventure and a whole new universe, as in a TCU with the intent to have lots of stories and projects to come as we get even more great B-roll and shots of Clark talking to Pa Kent at the Kent farm, and Superman with citizens looking up at likely Superman flying by. And again, right at the tip-tail end of this sizzle reel, we get quite a lot of burst shots here that go by very quickly, but we can see that there appears to be Lex Troopers here in addition to military at what looks to be at that same set location to where Superman gets involved in Baravia and possibly raises those geopolitical tensions. The same place to where that kid is calling out for Superman. So I think this could even be them all reacting to Superman landing and possibly using his powers. Like, it'd be pretty cool with the way they're holding their hands out there that he might be using his breath to blow a bunch of sand to kind of cloud their vision while people get to safety. I don't know. I'm just a shot in the dark there. Then we get Superman looking pretty damn beat. In this sequence, maybe after facing the Kaiju, he's getting, like, smashed around, but it could be, obviously, anything in the movie. But I am going to have to end this video here, guys, because I've got quite a bit of editing to do. I'm probably getting this up way later than everyone else, so thanks for bearing with me while I was rambling and doing this in-depth breakdown. So all that's left to say is let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I do want to remind you we will be doing more, deep dives into this, but this is my initial thoughts and breakdown on the behind-the-scenes look. Like the video if you did enjoy it. Do subscribe for more videos just like this. But again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. Happy Superman Day, and I'll see you guys, fellow Kryptonians even, in the next video. Goodbye.